One choice, one moment, one love story. Welcome to When He Chose Her. Enjoy the story. Sometimes the people who save a child's life are the same people the world never notices until it's too late. Rain hammered the sidewalks of downtown Chicago hard enough to blur the traffic lights into streaks of red and gold across the wet pavement as Elena Brooks pushed open the back door of Harbor Cafe with her shoulder, balancing 2 bags of leftover pastries against her hip, while muttering under her breath about customers who ordered almond croissants 5 minutes before closing. Her ponytail was half ruined from steam and exhaustion, and the old neon sign above the cafe buzzed like it was one bad day away from giving up entirely. You know, her coworker Mia called from inside. Normal people go home after work. Elena smirked without turning around. And missed this beautiful weather. Thunder cracked somewhere over the river. Pass. She stepped into the alley beside the cafe, pulling her coat tighter as cold November wind swept through the street. It was almost midnight. Most of the financial district had gone dark except for the luxury hotel across the avenue, where black SUVs lined the curb like silent bodyguards. Elena adjusted the pastry bags and started toward the bus stop when something caught her attention. A little boy stood alone beside the glowing ATM near the hotel entrance. Maybe 8 years old. Blonde hair. Navy school blazer. Shoes too expensive for a kid to ruin in rainwater. He looked over his shoulder once, then quickly shoved a folded piece of paper into the corner of the ATM receipt slot before stepping back. Elena slowed. The boy's face stayed calm, but his eyes didn't. They darted toward the street the way frightened people checked exits without realizing it. 2 men in dark coats approached from the curb seconds later. One grabbed the boy gently by the shoulder with a smile that looked practiced instead of warm. "There you are," the taller man said. "You can't wander off like that." The kid forced a nod. Too fast. Too rehearsed. Elena felt something cold settle quietly in her stomach. She'd spent years learning how fear really looked. Most people thought fear screamed. Real fear stayed polite. The shorter man noticed her staring and offered a casual grin. "Kid thinks he's in a spy movie." Elena smiled back lightly. "Honestly, same. I used to fake my own kidnappings all the time at that age." The taller man chuckled, but his eyes didn't. Funny. The boy looked at Elena for half a second longer than necessary. That was when she saw it. His right hand twitching twice against his coat pocket. A signal. Not random. Deliberate. Elena's heartbeat slowed instead of speeding up. Her psychology professor once called it emergency calm. The strange silence some people fell into when instincts took over. "Cute kid," she said casually, stepping closer beneath the ATM light. "Yours? Nephew?" The shorter man answered immediately. Too immediately. Elena nodded slowly. Then her eyes drifted toward the black SUV parked nearby. Tinted windows. Temporary plates. The security decal on the windshield was upside down. Small detail. Wrong detail. Rainwater slid down Elena's cheek as she shifted one pastry bag higher against her arm. "Well," she sighed dramatically, "whoever designed that hotel valet system deserves prison time. I've been trying to cross this street for like 10 minutes. The men barely reacted, but the boy did. Tiny movement. Tiny hope flickering behind his eyes. Elena suddenly walked straight past them toward the ATM machine. "Wait," the taller man snapped sharply. Elena blinked. "What? That machine's out of order." "Great," she muttered loudly. "First my boss forgets to pay overtime, and now the ATM dies too. Fantastic." She leaned casually against the machine just long enough to slide her fingers into the folded note hidden beside the receipt slot. Smooth. Fast. Invisible beneath the pastry bag. Then she rolled her eyes dramatically and stepped away. "You guys have a nice night." The shorter man stared at her another second too long before guiding the boy toward the SUV. Elena kept walking toward the corner without looking back. 1 block. 2 blocks. Only when she reached the bus stop shelter did she finally unfold the wet piece of paper beneath the flickering light. 3 words written in shaky pencil. "Help They Lied." Elena stared at the note as traffic hissed through rainwater nearby. Then slowly, very slowly, she looked back toward the black SUV pulling away from the curb. Her bus arrived seconds later with brakes squealing against wet pavement. The doors opened. The driver waved impatiently. Elena didn't move. Somewhere inside that SUV, a terrified little boy was pretending to stay calm around 2 men who were not his family. Thunder rolled again above the city. Elena folded the note carefully and slipped it into her pocket. Then she whispered the 5 words that would change her life forever. Okay, kid. I saw it too. There was a difference between people who noticed trouble and people who acted on it. Most walked away because walking away was easier. Elena Brooks almost got on the bus anyway. The doors hissed open in front of her while rainwater streamed down the shelter roof in silver lines. You getting on or not? The driver asked impatiently. Elena looked at the folded paper in her hand again. Help, they lied. 3 shaky words from a child who had looked too calm to actually be safe. The bus pulled away without her 30 seconds later. Great decision, she muttered to herself. Absolutely no chance this becomes a disaster. She shoved the pastry bags tighter under her arm and hurried back toward Harbor Cafe through the cold wind. Inside, the lights were already dimmed. Mia stood on a chair flipping stools upside down onto tables while old jazz crackled softly through the cafe speakers. Please tell me you did not miss your bus for another stray cat situation, Mia said without looking up. Elena grabbed the delivery keys hanging near the register. Worse. Tax fraud. Possible kidnapping. Mia froze midair on the chair. I am sorry, what? Elena was already pulling on the oversized rain jacket used for deliveries. Black SUV. Fake security sticker. Nervous kid. Weird body language. Definitely not family. Mia blinked twice. You figured all that out in like 30 seconds? Elena shrugged. 45. It was raining. Elena. Mia climbed down slowly. Normal people call the police. I am calling the police. Elena stuffed the note into her pocket. After I know where they are going. Mia stared at her like she had completely lost her mind. Honestly, maybe she had. Elena grabbed the keys to the cafe's ancient blue delivery wagon parked outside. The thing looked like a toaster somebody had given wheels to in 1998. One door only opened from the outside, and the heater worked when it felt emotionally available. That car cannot even survive a speed bump, Mia shouted as Elena headed for the door. Perfect, Elena called back. Neither can I. Rain exploded against the windshield the second she started the engine. The wipers squeaked across the glass like angry seagulls while Elena pulled onto Michigan Avenue, scanning traffic ahead. Black SUV. Temporary plates. Tinted windows. She spotted it 3 lights later merging toward Lower Wacker Drive. Okay, she whispered. Please let this be rich people behaving weirdly and not an actual crime. But deep down she already knew. The SUV never drove normally. It changed lanes too often. Avoided traffic cameras. Took side streets instead of main routes. Whoever those men were, they did not want to be tracked. Elena kept enough distance not to be noticed while fumbling for her phone with one hand. She dialed 911. Emergency services. Hi, Elena said quickly. I think I am following a kidnapped child. Silence. Then suddenly the operator sounded very awake. Ma'am, what is your location? Elena gave the cross streets while keeping her eyes locked on the SUV ahead. The boy slipped me a note asking for help. 2 adult males. Black Cadillac Escalade. Temporary Illinois plates. Do not approach the suspects. Trust me, Elena muttered as her delivery wagon rattled violently over a pothole. Approaching anybody in this car is already a safety concern. The operator asked more questions while dispatch contacted Chicago police. Elena answered automatically, but her attention stayed on the SUV. Then something unexpected happened. The rear passenger window lowered slightly. Noah Whitmore looked out directly at her car. Rain blew across his face as city lights flickered over his expression. He recognized her. For one tiny second his frightened face changed completely. Hope. Then the window rolled back up. Elena swallowed hard. The child just saw me, she whispered. He knows somebody is following. Units are en route, the operator replied. Continue at a safe distance. Safe distance disappeared 3 minutes later when the SUV suddenly accelerated down an underground ramp toward the lower river roads beneath the city. Elena cursed softly and slammed the gas pedal. The delivery wagon groaned like it was filing a complaint with God. Come on, she begged the car. You can fall apart tomorrow. Water sprayed across concrete tunnels while headlights flashed through steam and shadows. The black SUV cut sharply around a turn. Elena followed too fast, and a box of leftover powdered donuts launched off the passenger seat directly into her face. Fantastic, she sputtered, spitting powdered sugar. I am literally in a kidnapping chase with bakery products. But then she saw it. The SUV missed a red light camera by inches before disappearing toward the old industrial river district. Empty warehouses, closed shipping yards, hardly any traffic. Elena's stomach tightened. People did not bring children to places like that for innocent reasons. The operator's voice crackled through the phone. Police are approximately 8 minutes away. Elena stared ahead at the taillights vanishing deeper into the dark maze of warehouses. 8 minutes suddenly felt like forever. Chicago looked different beneath the river roads. Darker, colder. Like the city kept secrets down there it did not want daylight to touch. Elena tightened both hands around the steering wheel as the delivery wagon rattled through puddles deep enough to shake the entire car. Ahead, the black Escalade turned sharply between two abandoned warehouse buildings near the shipping district and disappeared behind rusted loading docks. Elena immediately killed her headlights and slowed. "Please let me be overreacting," she whispered. "Please let this kid just belong to the world's weirdest family." But even she did not believe it anymore. The warehouse district was silent except for rain tapping metal rooftops and distant train tracks humming somewhere in the dark. No businesses. No security guards. No reason for a child to be there after midnight. Elena parked behind a stack of old freight containers and grabbed her phone. "Ma'am, officers are still several minutes away due to road flooding," the dispatcher explained through static. Elena looked toward the warehouse entrance where faint headlights glowed beneath a broken loading sign. "Several minutes is not comforting right now. Do not engage the suspects." Elena almost laughed at that. Too late. She stepped out into freezing rain and quietly closed the car door. Her sneakers splashed through shallow puddles while wind whipped strands of wet hair across her face. Every instinct told her to stay hidden. Every instinct also told her the boy inside was running out of time. She moved carefully along the side of the warehouse until voices drifted through the rain. Male. Agitated. One of them smoking. Elena crouched behind a concrete pillar and peeked around the corner. The Escalade sat half-concealed near an open loading bay. Two men stood arguing beside it while a third talked angrily on the phone. "No," the man snapped. "The father still thinks this is a security transfer." Elena's stomach tightened. "Father. So the boy came from money. Serious money." One of the men opened the rear passenger door briefly. Elena caught a glimpse of Noah inside, hands tied loosely in front of him. Still calm somehow. Too calm for a child his age. Then she noticed something strange. Tiny colorful pieces scattered beneath the SUV tire. Lego bricks. Noah had been dropping them deliberately like breadcrumbs. Elena almost smiled despite the tension. "Okay, detective," she whispered softly. "I see your trail." Suddenly her phone buzzed loudly in her pocket. Elena froze in horror. Mia's name flashed across the screen. One of the kidnappers turned instantly. "Did you hear that?" Elena ducked lower behind the pillar while fumbling to silence the call. Footsteps splashed through puddles toward her position. Slow. Careful. Elena held her breath. The footsteps stopped just feet away on the other side of the pillar. "Probably a rat," another man muttered. "This whole place smells like sewer water anyway." The footsteps retreated. Elena exhaled shakily and texted Mia with trembling fingers. "If I die, delete my internet history." Mia replied almost immediately. "You are not funny. Call the police again." Elena looked back toward the warehouse. Then suddenly another pair of headlights appeared racing down the access road outside. Sleek black sedan. Expensive. Fast. The kidnappers reacted instantly. "What now?" one hissed. The sedan stopped hard near the loading bay, and a tall man stepped out into the rain without even bothering to close the car door behind him. Gray overcoat. Dark hair soaked from the storm. Fury radiating from him so intensely the entire atmosphere seemed to tighten. Damian Whitmore. Even Elena recognized him immediately. Billionaire founder of Whitmore Dynamics. Financial magazines called him ruthless. Business channels called him brilliant. The internet mostly called him terrifying. In person he looked exhausted, like a man held together entirely by adrenaline and control. "Where's my son?" Damian's voice cut cleanly through the rain. "Calm. Too calm." One kidnapper stepped forward smoothly. "Mr. Whitmore, everything is under control. There was a security issue with the route, and you changed vehicles without authorization," Damian interrupted coldly. "You disabled GPS tracking, and you stopped answering my calls 13 minutes ago." Silence. Elena watched something shift in the kidnapper's expressions. Panic. Tiny but visible. Damien took another step forward. Open the door. Nobody moved. Then Noah's voice suddenly echoed from inside the SUV. Dad. Everything exploded into motion at once. One kidnapper grabbed for the vehicle door, while another reached toward his jacket. Damien surged forward instinctively. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. Too many people. Too much chaos. Too many ways this could go wrong. Then Noah looked directly past his father toward the shadows where Elena stood hidden beside the warehouse pillar. The boy shouted the last thing anybody expected. The waitress is here too. Every head turned toward Elena at the exact same moment. For one impossible second, the entire warehouse district went silent except for the ring. Elena stood, frozen beside the concrete pillar with powdered sugar still smeared faintly across her jacket from the donut disaster, while 5 men stared directly at her like she had just appeared out of thin air. The waitress? Damien Whitmore repeated sharply. Noah pushed halfway out of the SUV before one of the kidnappers pulled him back again. She followed us, Noah shouted. I left clues and she found me. Elena honestly could not decide what was worse. Being discovered by kidnappers or being introduced to a billionaire while hiding behind industrial concrete at midnight. Okay, she said slowly, raising both hands. Before anybody panics, I would just like to point out this entire situation feels deeply illegal. One of the kidnappers moved toward her immediately. Damien stepped sideways without hesitation, blocking the path between them. Elena noticed it instantly. Protective. Automatic. The kind of movement people made before their brain caught up. Damien never looked away from the men in front of him. Who is she? He asked coldly. Nobody. The taller man answered too quickly. Just some woman from the street. Actually, Elena muttered. That is hurtful because technically I came from a cafe. Noah suddenly shouted from inside the SUV. She saw the fake security sticker. Silence again. The kidnappers visibly stiffened. Damien's eyes narrowed slowly as pieces clicked together inside his head. Fake sticker. Unauthorized route. Temporary plates. Wrong personnel. The billionaire's expression changed in real time from suspicion to something far more dangerous. Understanding. One of the kidnappers forced a nervous smile. Mr. Whitmore, your son is confused. We were trying to protect him after the traffic issue. You touched my son without authorization, Damien interrupted quietly. His calmness somehow made the air colder. Elena watched the kidnappers glance at each other. Tiny movements. Tiny panic. Then suddenly distant sirens echoed faintly somewhere above the river roads. Police. Every head snapped toward the sound. The shortest kidnapper cursed under his breath. Damien reacted instantly. Noah, he called firmly. Come here now. One of the men reached for the SUV door again, but Elena moved before she could think. Wait, she shouted loudly. Everyone looked at her. Elena pointed toward the far side of the warehouse. Your tire is flat. The men instinctively turned their heads. It worked. Only for half a second. But half a second was enough. Noah shoved the SUV door open and sprinted through the rain straight toward his father. Damien caught him immediately, pulling the boy tightly against his chest with one arm while backing away from the kidnappers. Elena felt her heartbeat finally return. The kidnappers realized the situation had collapsed. One cursed again while another started backing toward a side vehicle parked near the loading dock. Police sirens grew louder now. Much louder. This is over, Damien said coldly. Nobody argued with him this time. Within moments, the men scattered into the storm while flashing police lights exploded across the warehouse walls in red and blue reflections. Officers rushed into the loading area, shouting commands while Noah clung tightly to Damien's coat. Elena stepped backward instinctively, trying to disappear before anybody asked too many questions. She hated attention, especially rich attention. But then Noah suddenly pointed toward her. Dad, that is her. Damien turned fully for the first time since arriving. Rain rolled down his dark coat, while city lights reflected sharply across his face. Up close, he looked even more intimidating than television interviews suggested. Taller, sharper, exhausted in ways cameras never showed. His son stayed pressed tightly against his side, but Noah's eyes remained fixed on Elena with complete trust. She followed us, Noah repeated quietly. Everybody else ignored me. Damien stared at Elena for a long moment that felt strangely heavy, like he was trying to solve a puzzle nobody else could see. Finally he spoke. You followed a kidnapping suspect alone in that His eyes shifted toward the battered blue delivery wagon barely surviving beside the loading dock. Elena looked over. One windshield wiper had stopped functioning entirely, and the front bumper now hung slightly sideways. In fairness, she admitted, the car also tried very hard to stop me. Noah suddenly laughed. Actual laughter. Small but real. Damien looked down at his son in surprise like he had not heard that sound in a while. The moment softened him instantly. Just for a second. Then his attention returned to Elena. You could have been hurt. Elena shrugged uncomfortably beneath his stare. The kid needed help. Simple answer. Honest answer. Damien looked at her differently after that. Not like a billionaire looking at a waitress. Not like a powerful man noticing somebody beneath him. More like somebody encountering something rare he did not fully understand yet. One police officer approached quickly. Mr. Whitmore, we need your statement immediately. Damien nodded once, but never fully took his eyes off Elena. What is your name? Elena Brooks. Elena, he repeated carefully like memorizing it mattered. Noah tugged lightly on his father's sleeve. Dad, what? Noah grinned faintly despite the rain and flashing lights around them. Can she come with us? Elena blinked. Damien looked equally caught off guard. Then for the first time that entire night, something almost resembling a smile touched the corner of the billionaire's mouth. The rain finally began to weaken around 2 in the morning, but the adrenaline still clung to Elena like cold water beneath her jacket. She sat stiffly in the back seat of a black luxury SUV that probably cost more than every apartment she had ever rented combined, while Noah Whitmore talked nonstop beside her about detective movies, dinosaur documentaries, and how one time he accidentally hacked his private school attendance system trying to avoid math class. It was technically an educational experience, Noah explained seriously. Elena laughed despite herself. Across from them, Damien Whitmore remained silent with one arm resting protectively behind his son. He had barely looked away from Noah since leaving the warehouse district. Every few seconds his eyes checked the boy automatically. Breathing. Safe. Real. Elena noticed those things because she noticed everything. The billionaire's penthouse overlooked Lake Michigan from nearly 60 floors above the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows. White marble. Quiet so perfect it almost echoed. Elena stepped inside carefully, leaving damp footprints on polished floors that looked too expensive for normal shoes. Wow, she muttered softly. Your apartment has better lighting than my entire neighborhood. Noah grinned. Wait until you see the movie room. Noah, Damien warned gently. She is not staying for a house tour. Yet, Noah corrected. Damien exhaled slowly like fatherhood required more patience than billion-dollar negotiations. A woman in a dark security blazer approached quickly from the hallway. Relief flooded her face the second she saw Noah unharmed. Mr. Whitmore, she breathed. Thank God. Noah immediately hugged her. Hi, Claire. Damien's expression hardened again into business mode. Double internal security immediately. Nobody enters this building without direct clearance from me. Claire nodded instantly before glancing toward Elena with visible confusion. Elena raised one hand awkwardly. Hi. I am apparently part of the kidnapping story now. Noah burst out laughing again. Damien looked at Elena then. Really looked at her for the first time beneath proper lighting instead of flashing police sirens and rain. Blonde hair half escaped from her ponytail. Wet sneakers. Cafe jacket stained with powdered sugar. Tired blue-gray eyes still alert despite the chaos of the night. Completely out of place in his world. Yet somehow calmer than most people in it. You should have a doctor examine you, Damien said suddenly. Elena blinked. I got hit by a donut, not a truck. You followed armed criminals through Chicago in a car held together by optimism. That is fair. Noah tugged Elena's sleeve. Can you stay until I fall asleep? Damien immediately opened his mouth to object, then stopped. Noah's voice had changed. Smaller now. Fragile beneath the humor. Elena noticed Damien catch it too. Fathers always heard fear differently after almost losing a child. Damien looked down at his son quietly. 1 hour, he said finally. Noah pumped his fist like he had just won a championship game. Yes. 20 minutes later, Elena found herself sitting in a massive kitchen drinking tea she definitely could not pronounce. While Noah built Lego towers across the marble counter, Damien stood nearby speaking quietly into his phone about private investigators, security failures, and internal leaks. Even exhausted, he carried authority effortlessly, like the room naturally adjusted around him. But Noah barely paid attention to his father's business calls. The boy kept sliding Lego pieces toward Elena instead. You know, he whispered dramatically, Dad is terrifying to most people. Elena glanced toward the billionaire. Honestly, I noticed. Noah smirked. But he likes you. Elena nearly inhaled hot tea directly into her lungs. Your father met me 3 hours ago. Exactly. Noah sounded deeply impressed by this fact. Damien ended the call and walked back toward them. You should both sleep. We are busy, Noah informed him. Damien looked down at the chaotic Lego city, now covering his luxury kitchen island. Tiny plastic dinosaurs stood beside miniature police cars, while a half-finished tower leaned dangerously near imported Italian countertops. Clearly, Elena smiled into her teacup before she could stop herself. Damien noticed. Just for a second, the tension around his eyes softened again. Then Noah suddenly froze mid-build. Wait. His face scrunched in confusion. Elena. Yeah. How did you know something was wrong tonight? The kitchen grew quiet. Rain tapped softly against the windows high above the sleeping city. Elena stared at the steam rising from her tea for a moment before answering. Because scared people always try to look normal first. Damien's eyes lifted slowly toward her. Elena continued quietly. The kidnapper smiled too quickly. You know how fake smiles happen faster than real ones. Noah nodded immediately. Like politicians. Exactly. Even Damien almost smiled at that. Elena set her cup down gently. And your note. Noah looked proud instantly. Good clue, right? Excellent clue. Damien studied her carefully now with something deeper than gratitude. Curiosity. Respect. Maybe even confusion about how a waitress had noticed details trained security teams missed completely. You said scared people try to look normal, he said quietly. That sounds specific. Elena's expression changed almost invisibly. Tiny shift. Tiny shadow crossing her face before she forced a light smile again. Everybody learns something from surviving hard years. Damien noticed that answer was not really an answer. But before he could ask more, Noah yawned so dramatically he nearly collapsed sideways into his Lego dinosaurs. Elena laughed softly while Damien caught his son before he slid off the stool completely. For the first time all night, the billionaire actually looked peaceful holding his child again. And without understanding why, Elena suddenly found it difficult to look away. By sunrise, the storm had finally moved past Chicago, leaving the city washed silver beneath pale winter light. Elena stood near the floor-to-ceiling windows of Damien Whitmore's penthouse, holding a mug of coffee that probably cost more than her hourly wage, while watching boats drift slowly across Lake Michigan far below. She had not planned to stay until morning. She definitely had not planned to fall asleep for 20 minutes on a billionaire's couch, while his son used her shoulder as a pillow and a Lego dinosaur balanced on her knee. Yet somehow that was exactly what had happened. Behind her, the quiet sound of a piano drifted softly through the apartment. Elena turned slightly. Damien sat alone near the far corner of the penthouse where a black grand piano overlooked the skyline. He played slowly, not polished enough for performance, just enough to think. The music surprised her. Men like Damien Whitmore were supposed to answer emails at sunrise, not play piano in silence while the city woke up beneath them. Noah shuffled sleepily into the room wearing oversized socks and carrying a blanket behind him like a defeated superhero cape. Dad does that when he cannot sleep, he whispered dramatically. Or when the stock market crashes. Damien stopped playing immediately without turning around. I can't hear you. That means I am correct. Elena laughed softly into her coffee. Noah grinned proudly at earning it. The billionaire rose from the piano a moment later, loosening the sleeves of his white dress shirt as he crossed the room. Even exhausted, he looked composed in a way Elena suspected came from years of forcing himself not to fall apart publicly. Your car is being repaired, Damien said calmly. Elena blinked. Excuse me. Your delivery wagon nearly lost a bumper during the chase. That bumper has been emotionally detached since 2017. It is already at a mechanic. Elena stared at him. You kidnapped my car. Noah gasped loudly. Wow, that sounds illegal when you say it like that. Damien pinched the bridge of his nose briefly, like fatherhood required advanced crisis management skills. I arranged repairs as a thank you. Rich people really solve everything by secretly purchasing things, huh? A faint smile touched Damien's mouth again. Tiny. Fast. But real. Before he could answer, Claire entered the room carrying a tablet with visible tension across her face. Mr. Whitmore. Damien immediately shifted back into business mode. What happened? Claire handed him the tablet silently. Elena watched his expression darken as he read. News headlines filled the screen. Missing security team linked to failed abduction of billionaire heir. Whitmore Dynamics under investigation after security breach. One article already included grainy photographs from the warehouse district. Flashing police lights. Noah wrapped in Damien's coat. Elena standing nearby in her soaked cafe jacket looking deeply confused by her own existence. Oh no, Elena whispered. Noah looked delighted instead. You look cool in that picture. I look like a wet substitute teacher. Damien ignored both comments while scanning the reports. How did the press get this already? Claire hesitated. Someone inside the police department leaked it. Damien's jaw tightened visibly. Find out who. Elena quietly watched him. The shift was immediately every time pressure appeared. Softer moments vanished behind steel walls again. Controlled voice. Controlled posture. Controlled breathing. She suddenly understood why people called him intimidating. It was not anger. It was precision. Noah noticed it too. The boy's smile faded slightly. Dad. Damien looked up instantly. What? You are doing the thing again. What thing? The robot billionaire. Face. Elena bit the inside of her cheek, trying not to laugh. Claire looked terrified to even exist in the same room. Damien stared at his son for 2 full seconds before exhaling quietly. I do not have a robot face. You absolutely do, Noah informed him. It is like Batman, but with spreadsheets. Elena lost the fight against laughter entirely this time. Actual laughter. Warm and unexpected. Damien turned toward her slowly. You find this amusing? A little. Traitor, he muttered under his breath. Noah looked deeply satisfied with himself. Then suddenly the apartment intercom buzzed sharply. Claire answered it immediately before stiffening. Mr. Whitmore. Damien took the call. His expression hardened within seconds. Who let them inside? Elena frowned slightly. What is happening? Damien ended the call and looked toward the elevator hallway. Reporters. Noah groaned dramatically. The news people are so annoying. Voices already echoed faintly beyond the private elevator entrance downstairs. Questions. Camera shutters. Security trying to hold people back. Elena's stomach dropped. Absolutely not. She backed away immediately. No. I am leaving. Damien looked at her sharply. Elena, I am serious. I did not sign up to become Chicago's accidental superhero waitress. Noah blinked. That is actually a really cool title. Elena pointed at him. You are making this worse. But before anyone could respond, another voice suddenly echoed from the hallway television left running quietly near the kitchen. Sources confirm the unidentified waitress may have personally helped save billionaire Damien Whitmore's son during the attempted abduction. Elena froze. Slowly, painfully slowly, her own exhausted face appeared across every television screen in the penthouse. By noon, Chicago had completely lost its mind. News vans crowded the street outside Harbor Cafe. Social media clips of Elena Brooks spread across every platform faster than she could understand. Grainy warehouse footage. Blurry screenshots. Headlines calling her everything from the hero waitress to Chicago's guardian angel in sneakers. Elena stood frozen behind the cafe counter staring at a television while customers openly took pictures of her through the front windows. I hate modern civilization, she muttered. Mia nearly dropped an entire tray of coffee mugs laughing. You are trending above celebrity divorces right now. That is basically American royalty. Elena groaned into her hands. I literally just wanted to pay rent this month. The bell above the cafe door jingled every 30 seconds as more curious customers entered pretending they only wanted coffee. They all ordered the same thing. Whatever the brave waitress recommends. Elena wanted to disappear into another state. Unfortunately, the universe seemed committed to the opposite plan. Outside, reporters shouted questions anytime the door opened. Elena, how did you know the child was in danger? Did the billionaire offer you money? Are you dating Damien Whitmore? Elena nearly choked on her own coffee hearing that last one. People are insane, she whispered. Mia smirked while wiping down the counter. You did spend the night at his penthouse. Because of crime. Still counts. Before Elena could argue, the cafe suddenly went quiet. Not normal quiet. Weird quiet. The kind that happened when everybody noticed someone important entering a room at the same time. Elena slowly turned toward the door. Damian Whitmore stood there in a charcoal overcoat beside Noah, who waved enthusiastically like this was completely normal. Half the cafe nearly stopped breathing. Damian ignored the staring customers entirely. His attention went straight to Elena. "Your neighborhood has terrible parking," he said calmly. Elena blinked. "You came here yourself?" Noah insisted. Noah immediately pointed at his father. "He also checked your cafe reviews online for 20 minutes. Damian gave his son a look that clearly promised future consequences. Elena failed very badly at hiding her smile. A tiny elderly woman sitting near the window whispered loudly to her husband, "Oh, they are absolutely falling in love." Elena almost dropped a coffee spoon. Damian heard it too. Somehow the billionaire actually looked uncomfortable for the first time since she met him. Noah looked delighted. "Can I sit at your favorite booth?" he asked Elena immediately. "The detective booth?" Elena nodded slowly. "Sure." Noah rushed toward the corner booth, while Damian remained near the counter. The entire cafe pretended not to stare at him, while staring extremely hard. Elena crossed her arms lightly. "You know this place sells $5 grilled cheese sandwiches, right?" "I am aware. You own a helicopter." "Also true. This is weird for you." Damian glanced around the crowded cafe. Steam from espresso machines drifted through warm afternoon light, while old jazz hummed softly overhead. Normal people laughed at small tables. College students typed on laptops. Somebody dropped a fork in the kitchen. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "It is." Elena studied him carefully. No cameras. No boardrooms. No security teams surrounding him now. Just a tired billionaire standing awkwardly inside a neighborhood cafe because his son trusted a waitress. Somehow that version of Damian felt far more real than the one on television. Noah suddenly shouted from the booth, "Dad, come sit down before the internet marries you two without permission." Half the cafe burst into laughter. Damian closed his eyes briefly like patience was becoming a spiritual exercise. Elena carried over 2 coffees and slid into the booth across from Noah, while Damian sat beside his son. "So," Elena said carefully, "how bad is the media chaos?" Damian's expression darkened slightly. "Worse than expected." "That sounds comforting." "Someone leaked internal security files this morning." Noah quietly stopped smiling. Damian noticed instantly. "Hey." His voice softened. "It is handled." Elena watched the exchange carefully. Damian might struggle with warmth sometimes, but every emotion he had pointed toward protecting his son. Even exhaustion. Even fear. Especially fear. The police identified 2 of the suspects. Damian continued quietly. Former contractors connected to a private security firm. Elena's fingers tightened slightly around her coffee cup. "What?" Damian noticed the reaction immediately. "You recognize the name?" Elena hesitated too long. Noah looked between them curiously. Damian's eyes narrowed slightly. "Elena." She stared down at the coffee for a second before speaking. "The security company used to employ the man responsible for my father's death." Silence settled heavily across the booth. Even the cafe noise seemed farther away suddenly. Noah blinked softly. "Your dad died." Elena nodded once. "Years ago." Damian watched her differently after that. Not curiosity anymore. Understanding. The kind born from recognizing pain in another person because you carried your own version too. "That is why you noticed them," he said quietly. Elena gave a small humorless smile. "Turns out trauma is surprisingly educational." Noah reached across the table and placed one tiny Lego detective figure beside her coffee cup without saying a word. Elena looked down at it, then at him. The little boy shrugged shyly. Detectives should stick together. Something inside her chest tightened unexpectedly. Across the table, Damian saw it happen. Saw the way her guarded expression softened around his son. Saw the exhaustion beneath her strength. Saw the quiet loneliness she carried so carefully most people probably missed it entirely. Outside, the cafe cameras still flashed through the windows. Reporters still shouted questions. The city still treated Elena Brooks like a headline. But inside that tiny booth, for one strange, peaceful moment, she no longer felt invisible. 3 weeks later, the city was still talking about Elena Brooks, but the attention had changed shape. At first, she had been a headline, a mystery waitress, a viral hero. Now people brought flowers to Harbor Cafe. Parents stopped by just to shake her hand. Children left tiny Lego figures near the register because Noah had accidentally told the internet she was basically Batman, but with coffee. Elena hated how much that made her smile. Winter settled fully over Chicago as December lights spread across downtown streets, and snow drifted softly along the river walk every evening. Harbor Cafe stayed crowded constantly now. Mia called it the superhero business boom. Elena called it exhausting. Yet every morning around 7:30 sharp, the front door opened and Damian Whitmore walked in wearing dark wool coats that probably belonged in luxury magazines instead of neighborhood cafes. And every morning Noah followed directly behind him carrying enough energy to power the eastern seaboard. "Your billionaire is here again," Mia whispered one snowy morning while polishing glasses dramatically. Elena nearly dropped the cinnamon roll tray. "He is not my billionaire." That sounds exactly like something said by a woman with a billionaire. Elena glared at her while Damian approached the counter. "Good morning," he said calmly. "One black coffee. No sugar." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You memorized the menu now?" "I own a technology company. Patterns are my profession." Noah leaned against the counter with a grin. "Dad also memorized your work schedule." Damian looked genuinely offended. That information was available accidentally. Elena laughed before she could stop herself. The sound surprised all three of them a little. Because lately it happened more often. Damian noticed it too. He noticed everything about her now. The way she tucked loose hair behind one ear while concentrating. The way she quietly paid for elderly customers when they were short on cash. The way she always watched exits in every room without realizing it. And Elena noticed things too. Damian answering Noah's texts during meetings instead of ignoring them. Damian leaving work earlier. Damian learning how to listen instead of command. Some changes happened loudly. Others happened slowly enough to feel almost invisible until suddenly they were not. One snowy afternoon, Noah sat in the cafe booth doing homework while Damian worked on a laptop nearby. Elena carried over grilled cheese sandwiches and stopped short seeing what Noah was writing. "Wait," she said carefully. "Your school assignment is titled Reasons My Dad Needs More Hobbies?" Noah nodded seriously. "Current evidence suggests he only owns stress." Damian did not even look up from his laptop. "I can hear both of you." "Excellent," Noah replied. "This is called emotional growth." Elena laughed so hard she nearly spilled soup across the table. Damian looked up then, really looked at her. Warm cheeks from laughter. Snow melting in her hair from carrying deliveries outside. Light catching softly in blue-gray, eyes no longer guarded every second around him. Something shifted quietly inside his chest before he could stop it. Dangerous thing for a man who spent his entire life controlling every variable. Later that evening, the cafe finally emptied as snow covered the sidewalks outside in white silence. Mia had already gone home. Noah was asleep upstairs in Damian's waiting car after too much hot chocolate and Christmas cookies. Elena flipped the chairs onto tables while Damian stood near the front window, watching snowfall drift beneath the streetlights. "You know," Elena said softly, "most billionaires would have sent assistants to buy coffee for them by now." Damian slid his hands into his coat pockets. Most billionaires did not have their son saved by a waitress. Elena smiled faintly without looking at him. Quiet settled around them. Comfortable now instead of awkward. The kind that only existed between people who had slowly learned each other's silences. Damian finally spoke again. "You changed things for him." Elena looked up. "Noah." Damian nodded once. "He laughs more now." His voice softened slightly. "Truthfully, so do I." Elena's chest tightened unexpectedly. She looked away first. Dangerous territory. Feelings were complicated enough without billionaires involved. Damian walked closer slowly. Not intimidating this time. Careful. Like approaching something fragile he did not want to scare away. "You once said surviving hard years teaches people things," he said quietly. Elena swallowed lightly. "Yeah. What did yours teach you?" Snow tapped softly against the cafe windows. Elena stared down at the counter for a long moment before answering honestly. "That people leave." Damian's expression changed instantly. Not pity. Never pity. Understanding. "And yet," he said quietly, "you still stayed for a stranger's child." Elena finally looked at him then. Close enough now to notice exhaustion beneath his calm eyes. Close enough to see the loneliness he carried almost as carefully as she carried hers. "Noah was not the stranger," she whispered softly. "You were." Something almost broke across Damian's face at that. Not weakness. Something rarer. Vulnerability. Then suddenly a sleepy voice echoed from outside the cafe door. "Oh my God." Both turned sharply. Noah stood half awake beside the window wrapped in a blanket. Are you two having the emotional movie scene without me? Elena burst into helpless laughter while Damien closed his eyes briefly toward the ceiling like the universe itself was testing him personally. Noah grinned triumphantly. I knew it. Spring arrived quietly in Chicago 4 months later. Snow melted from the sidewalks. The river turned blue again instead of steel gray. Trees outside Harbor Cafe finally bloomed after another brutal winter, and for the first time in years Elena Brooks realized she no longer woke up waiting for something bad to happen. Some changes entered people's lives loudly. Others arrived slowly enough to feel like sunlight moving across a room. Damien Whitmore had become one of those changes. Every morning, he still came to the cafe before work. Every afternoon, Noah still appeared carrying unfinished homework and impossible amounts of energy. And somehow, without any official conversation about it, Elena had become part of their lives so naturally it no longer felt strange. One Thursday evening, the city gathered downtown for the opening ceremony of the Whitmore Foundation Center for Missing Children and Family Recovery. Reporters crowded the sidewalks outside the newly restored historic building while cameras flashed beneath gold lights and spring rain misted softly across Michigan Avenue. Elena stood near the back entrance adjusting the sleeves of a dark blue dress she had almost refused to wear. I still think this feels fake, she whispered. Mia nearly choked in disbelief. You are literally attending a charity gala with the most powerful man in Chicago. Exactly my point. Across the street, massive digital screens displayed the foundation's slogan beside images of reunited families and support centers funded across the city. But one smaller plaque near the entrance caught Elena completely off guard. For the quiet people who save lives without asking to be seen. Elena stopped breathing for a second. He wrote that for you, Mia whispered softly. Elena looked away quickly before emotions became dangerous. Inside the ballroom, crystal chandeliers reflected against marble floors while Chicago's political leaders, business executives, and reporters filled the room with polished conversation. Elena instantly fell out of place again until Noah appeared out of nowhere wearing a tiny black suit and sneakers because he claimed dress shoes were an attack on childhood. You came, he said happily before lowering his voice dramatically. Dad has checked the entrance like 14 times. Elena blinked. Seriously? Noah nodded. He pretends he is looking at security. Across the ballroom, Damien stood near the stage speaking quietly with city officials. Perfect suit. Calm posture. Effortless authority. Yet the second his eyes found Elena across the crowd, something shifted immediately. Softer. Realer. He excused himself mid-conversation without hesitation and walked straight toward her. People noticed. Of course they noticed. But for once Damien Whitmore did not seem to care. You look beautiful tonight, he said quietly when he reached her. Elena stared at him suspiciously. You practiced saying that in the mirror, did not you? Damien looked mildly offended. I am capable of spontaneous human interaction. Noah snorted loudly beside them. Debatable. Elena laughed before she could stop herself. Damien watched the sound reach her eyes first before her smile followed. His chest tightened the same way it always did lately around her. The event began moments later. Speeches. Cameras. Applause. Damien eventually stepped onto the stage beneath bright lights, while the entire ballroom quieted instantly. Elena stayed near the back beside Noah, trying not to draw attention. Damien adjusted the microphone slowly, scanning the crowd before speaking. 4 months ago, he began calmly. My son almost disappeared because I believed power and money could guarantee safety. The ballroom remained completely silent. I was wrong. Reporters scribbled furiously. Damien continued quietly. The person who protected him that night was not a politician. Not security. Not wealth. It was someone the world would normally overlook. Elena immediately wanted to disappear through the floor. Noah grinned beside her like a child watching his favorite movie scene. Damien's eyes found Elena in the crowd again. A waitress noticed what everybody else ignored because she chose compassion over convenience. The room softened somehow after that. Less formal. More human. Damien stepped away from the podium unexpectedly. Murmurs spread across the ballroom as he walked directly through the crowd toward Elena instead of staying on stage. Her heartbeat stumbled instantly. Oh no, she whispered under her breath. Noah whispered back. Oh yes. Damien stopped in front of her while cameras flashed everywhere around them. But his attention never left Elena's face. "You once told me people leave," he said quietly enough that only those closest could hear. Elena swallowed lightly. "Yeah." Damien's voice softened further. "I am still here." The room disappeared around her for one impossible second. No reporters. No billionaires. No cameras. Just the exhausted waitress who spent years surviving alone and the man who slowly taught himself how to stay. Elena smiled shakily through sudden tears she had not planned on feeling. "You know," she whispered, "for a terrifying billionaire, you are getting dangerously good at emotional speeches." Damien actually laughed softly. Warm. Real. Human. Then he reached for her hand carefully like it mattered. Like she mattered. "Elena Brooks," he said quietly, "you saved my son long before you saved me." Her eyes closed briefly at the honesty in his voice. Then she stepped closer and kissed him softly beneath the ballroom lights while the entire crowd erupted into applause around them. Somewhere nearby, Noah threw both arms into the air triumphantly and shouted loud enough for half the city to hear. Finally, laughter spread across the ballroom instantly. Damien rested his forehead gently against Elena's while cameras flashed like lightning around them. But neither of them looked away this time. Outside, spring rain shimmered across Chicago streets while the city celebrated a billionaire and the quiet waitress who changed his life simply because she chose to care when nobody else. Stop to notice. If this story touched your heart, do not forget to like, share this video, and let us know where you are watching from. And subscribe to When He Chose Her channel for more emotional billionaire love stories, quiet heroes, and unforgettable cinematic moments. Your support helps us keep bringing powerful stories about kindness, courage, and unexpected love to life every week.